I tell you, everybody says it sounds like a freight train. No way. I tell you, hit this scary, and I just thank the Lord that we didn't get hurt. And people I talk to, they just don't understand it. People's never went through one.
Probably Dawson lost about, I'd say, roughly 55 to 60% of the homes in town. They come right through the middle of the town, so.
We had to get out. I had a grandmother, her apartment was hit and she was trapped. And so the mission that night was to get her out of her apartment. Unfortunately, my brother-in-law is a volunteer firefighter. And so he was out searching homes and he was over in the neighborhood where she was. And so he busted through a window and got her out and walked her to the firehouse, which was probably, I'd say, 2 or 3 blocks away from her apartment. So that worked out well. And so we picked her up around, I'd say 3:30 in the morning. And then we just went back home and just sat there in the dark until we could get out when the sun came up to see all of the destruction.
Hit about 10:30. Hit almost before we hear it. About 190, 95 miles an hour. They found part of my bank statement the man did in Louisville. But he sent it back to me. Yeah, it come this way. It's supposed to went through Madisonville, but it turned. Well, me and my wife, 2 grandkids, and my granddaughter's boyfriend was under the dining room table. My oldest son and his wife was in the hall under a mattress. We just about had it the way we wanted it. We was on the last bathroom remodeling it. We was getting ready to tile the walls. Yeah, there's a lady we go to church with. She had a picture of it and hit this like an arch, 2 formed together. It's like an arch up at St. Louis. It's like that. I never seen anything like it. I worked one in 05 when that one hit, because I worked for a utility company. Well, that happened December 10th. We was in a rental house the 12th, or the 11th, next day, and we've been here about a little over a month. After I got my trailer in, it took probably a week. They had set new poles and run new lines. And me and my wife, we was in the bed. We all had COVID. And my son, he come in there and told us to get up. But I just thank God that nobody got killed. Like down there where that double wide setting, there's a lady there had her 2 grandkids there with her. She put them in the bathtub, put blankets, pillows around, and the bathtub turned over on top of the 2 little kids. One of them got a bump on the head.
I'm Tim Schaefer. My wife and I are the Call to Build, a disaster rebuild ministry. We're here in the Western Kentucky region around Dawson Springs, Bremen, Madisonville, working alongside of Fuller Center disaster rebuilders. And what we do is we do the logistics and set up, and volunteers come for a week at a time to work on rebuilding and repairing homes that were damaged by the tornadoes. Personally, this is the beginning of our 4th work week here. Fuller Center, I know, is committed to at least a couple years, maybe 3. My wife and I as well, we have a ministry. We work up in upstate New York. So we go up there for the winter, but then we're planning on being back down here again next year. And certainly the work will be going on for at least a few years. You know, it's always a thing with any disaster. You know, people drive through a month, 2 months later, and a lot of the debris is cleaned up. Another 6 months from now, a lot of the vegetation will have grown back, and it won't look so bad. But when you're driving through, what you don't realize is all those grassy spots that used to be a house. And it takes a long time. There's only so many volunteers, there's only so much resources available to do the work. It'll be a long recovery. It'll be, you know, a few years. Well, I can't speak for Fuller Center, what their goal is. My wife and I, as I said, we're disaster ministry, so we touch what's put in front of us. Currently, as we stand right now, we've got about 9 or somewhere between 9 and 11 projects active that we're at some stage of construction with, whether some we're just digging footers today, others here, the framing's up and we're trying to get it dried in. There's others that are just repair jobs where maybe the wind took off some shingles and they had some water incursion, so you know, repairing the drywall and some roof repairs. So currently active about 11 jobs and probably another 15 or 20 that we have eyes on, so to speak. And we try not to get too far ahead. You know, people have been through a lot and they've had so many different organizations come to help, and they go through cycles. You know, there was the impact of the disaster, and then a few days later, all the people showing up and kind of picks them up, gives them some hope, because all these people show up to help clean up, and then the cleanup's done, and then they think, oh, now I got to put this back. How are we going to put this back? And that becomes the long process. It's tough. It's tough for people. So in what we do, we try not to get 200 people that we go out and talk to say we're going to help them when it might be a year before we get to the next one. So we have to keep enough ahead that we have keep the volunteers occupied when they come. We've got 20 this week, 20 for the next couple weeks, in groups of 15, you know, through the year here, as well as Fuller Center has a lot of relationships with Amish teams. So if you've seen a lot of the Amish volunteers out here, they've been working with Fuller Center and with some other local folks. So there's been a lot of Amish teams that have done a lot of work. Last week they framed up 2 houses, and another crew from Indiana came down and framed up one of the houses. This house was, you know, framed up by the crew from Indiana last week, you know, that came down, and you know, they were done by Thursday and headed back home. So, and like I say, it's just one of the blessings of it. Unfortunately, it's somebody's loss that brings us together, but it's just reaffirmation of humanity's goodness that we see all the people that come, and many of them are repeats. The group that's here now, there's members of their group, 4 or 5 members of their group that have been doing this for 15 years and come out for a week every year. So instead of spending their week's vacation doing their honey-do list at home or sitting on the beach, they come down here or wherever they're called to, you know, to sweat and get dirty and work for a week, you know, to give back to God's glory and love on other people in whatever way we can.
Jesse Breedlove, Deputy Director of Hopkins County Emergency Management. There's a lot of people that rented homes and stuff like that, so I mean, we're having a hard time finding places to put everyone that's homeless now. The state's done a good job, you know, trying to get the trailers in, as well as FEMA, so I mean, we're doing the best we can on that and just trying to find a place for the people to come back to. Right now we have, I think this week, the volunteers that are going through us, there's probably 50 in town right now. I know in June, between us and another organization, there's going to be almost 300 in town at one time in June. So we're trying to work with Habitat for Humanity. They've got a couple of builds going as well as what you can see what's going on in town. We're trying to get it going for everybody as quick as we can. No, I got into town, the tornado hit 10:35. I probably got here around 11:30. By the time the judge executive, you know, we got all the first responders out and we went to emergency management and got set up and responded to the area. Yeah, the city park, which is actually right there, is where it was. The only thing that's left in it's one little playground, but it's got glass debris embedded inside the plastic, so none of that stuff in the park's even usable right now. The outpouring when the tornado first hit was unbelievable. I mean, we had so many volunteers that were getting irritated because we couldn't let them into the area still because we were doing search and rescue, you know. So we probably had 300 or 400 at a time up there waiting. And I know the night of the tornado and the day after, we had probably 500 first responders here. This area got hit hard. I mean, as you work your way through the rest, when you get over to the Madisonville, Barnsley area, you'll see everything there. You know, there was 20 train cars that were derailed over there, so.
My name is Kyler Danowski, and I own the Bloom Company, which is a floral and gift shop here in Mayfield. So my experience of December 10th, I do community theater, and so we had an opening night of our Christmas show, and we were all kind of on edge about actually going through and doing the show that night, but we did it, and we had about 30 minutes to get home before the tornado hit. So we all got home. I actually went to a friend's house in Sedalia, which is a little ways away from where we are right now. And fortunately, the tornado did not touch down there. But I spent a good portion of that night in her basement. And we had a friend there with us. And after the tornado had hit and everybody had heard the news, he left and drove up here to town and had to park quite a ways away. And he walked through all the debris to get to the shop just to see, you know, kind of the damage and how things were looking. So our friend left from the basement with us, and he drove into town. And I would say this was probably around midnight, maybe, because we all lost cell service and didn't really know, you know, how far into town you could get. And so he got in the car and drove over this way and parked. Probably 3 or 4 blocks away from where our other location was, walked over and was able to take some pictures, which it was with his cell phone and it was pitch black outside. So there was only so much you could see, but, and then he called us and was like, yeah, everything's gone, so. Mass chaos and confusion. There were so many different, you know, news outlets, different organizations that showed up to help. It was kind of neat to see all the different things. Like I think AT&T had a big truck where you could charge your phones, and Tide brought several different trucks to wash people's clothes and things like that. Things that I never knew even existed. And they were passing out food everywhere you looked. Papa John's had a big food truck, and they were giving out free pizzas, I think, for a couple weeks. And so that part was kind of neat to see that everybody stepped up, but at the same time, it was, I don't know, it almost added to the chaos for all the extra people to be here. And then, you know, everybody drove through that didn't belong here in town just to see all the damage, which of course added a little more stress to all of our plates because there was so much more traffic and whatnot. And then with it being right before Christmas, that also put a hurdle on other small businesses like this one that we've moved into. She had customers shopping in the dark because we didn't have power for a couple weeks. And so that definitely, it was kind of one of those situations where you couldn't remember what day it was for about a month because everything was just so out of sorts and nobody had a regular schedule to follow. So the only thing we pulled out was that sign that was above our front doors. And then we had 2 boxes of unbroken vases, of all things, that we pulled out, and everything else was a total loss. So we started from the ground up, basically, in here. Everything you see is brand new. So we're very, very grateful for the opportunity we had because so many people struggled to find new locations to reopen. And so it's opened new doors for us with coming here. But